Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Heal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of your social media platforms. Also, make sure you guys check out our new YouTube channel, which is called the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, formerly the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but now it's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network because we have more than one podcast. We have the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. On that podcast, I talk to other girl dads like myself about the relationship, the dad and daughter relationship. I started that podcast in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. So make sure you guys go check out our podcast, the Deal to Heal podcast, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions podcast on our new YouTube channel, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Make sure you guys go there and check that out on YouTube. Our product of the week. As you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air is by bringing you amazing products for you to purchase in order for us to stay on the air. So our product of the week is our Purpose Journal as well as our Purpose Planner, because I believe we need to journal in order to keep track of where we've been in our lives and where we are, as well as plan for our future. So make sure you guys go check out the links in the descriptions below. Definitely on Amazon, our Purpose Journal and our Purpose Planner for you guys. So make sure you go and check that out. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mrs. Jamal Thomas. How you doing?
Man, amazing, man. I appreciate you bringing me to the podcast tonight.
No problem, man. First of all, let me say thank you for being here, because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you decided to be here with me and my listeners, man. So we definitely appreciate it. I wanted to have you on. So let's jump right in it. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
What's up, world? I am Jamal Thomas. I am the founder, CEO of Vulnerable Education organization. I am founded specifically to improve student engagement in schools. I'm all about the ability to be vulnerable, not only with our education, but with ourselves. So I'm in the business of building professional students. I am an author working on a book. In my day to day, I teach. I've held several positions. I've been an assistant principal, instructional lead, girls track coach, director of curriculum instruction. I've been a classroom consultant, director of classroom consultant. I built the process as a service. I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of things. And now I'm genuinely on my entrepreneurship journey, which I believe got me as a guest today. What's up,
Right, right.
everybody?
No doubt, no doubt. So Jamal, we met in the Next Level Speakers Academy, which we're both a part of, on this journey to be professional speakers or being professional speakers at this point. So definitely was great to come in contact with you as well as the other members here in the Chicago Atlanta area with the Chicago chapter. So let's go back, Jamal, a little bit and to even go into your background because we definitely going to get into of how you became. Or should I say, get into your passion for education? But let's go back a little bit. Tell us who you were. Who was the earlier version of Jamal? Right
Mhm.
before you became as passionate as you are about education, and what was that thing that made the transition? You're like, what was that moment that it was like, you know what, I want to be a teacher, I want to be, instrumental in the lives of these kids, you know what I'm saying? So what was kind of your background, coming up, just who you are, as who you were and are as a person, and then what was that thing that made you say, all right, now I'm ready to start giving back?
Receive. Honestly, this journey actually started in college. I was a college student volunteer. I literally used to go do community service before I even went to classes. Guess the thing prior to Jamal, I'll be honest with the world. I personally don't like school. It's crazy that how passionate I am about education, but I really, really, really don't like school. So even being in school when I was in high school and things of that sort. I think the first idea when I first went to college, I was gonna be a businessman, and I was gonna minor in Chinese, and I was gonna be a an interpreter. I was gonna go and do big contracts, things of that sort. Once I got to college, I went to Morehouse College, and it really became about what is your niche, and really trying to figure out how do you show up as a Renaissance man with a social conscience. Shout out to Dr. Robert Michael Franklin. He was the president when I was there. He wasn't the one when I graduated, but when I was there, a lot of his ideals, it kind of like really helped me become the man that I am today. He gave us 5 wells, which was to be well dressed, well spoken, well traveled, well read, and well balanced. And I think those really started my journey to start to even think about education, because I just feel like that in itself was my first time going to college to have somebody break down the actual foundational standard of what it meant to be a man, let alone a Renaissance man. So I always been actively looking for, like, all right, what is am I somebody's son, like what do I have to do to be the best son I could be? And I'm pretty sure if you talk to my mom, like I think I grew a life of like looking for her approval and things of that sort.
Mhm.
I think transitioning into college, I went being in Atlanta really by myself. I had some distant cousins and things of that sort, but for the most part, I really felt like I was there by myself, because you gotta figure it out. Being in a new city, I got people to lean on, but you don't want to overuse your resources. You don't want to be overbearing. So it's like, all right, I'm a 18-year-old young man in Atlanta. Now what? What do I gotta do to not be back in the situation, or be back in Indiana, where I started? And one of the things that kept revolving in my life, even to today, is nobody's coming. In high school, nobody came. I came from a domestic abuse background. Like my mom, like heavy. I would say for about like a smooth, like probably started when I was about 8. It probably really didn't end until maybe I was like 17 ish, 18, going out the house. And I always felt like, dang, like I got uncles, I got older cousins. Um, but nobody came. And in addition to there, like I didn't know any professionals. And when I say professionals, I mean like people in corporate. And a lot of times I even redefine the way I see corporate now. Corporate to me is if you have a business and an EIN number, like you have the ability to go corporate. A lot of times we discredit small businesses. We discredit places like McDonald's and things as an actual business. But I'm named that to talk about this idea behind professionalism. It wasn't until I went to college. I used to wear like a name plate. You know, back in the day, we used to have a name plate. We used to have a name in our ear. We used to have the belts with the whole shebang, right? And I'll never forget. I went to college. And I had one of my business teachers put me to the side, and she told me, I was cool with her, like we was like real cool, like, and she was like, hey man, she just suggested to me, like, hey, I really think you should stop wearing that earring. Like, what? I've been wearing this earring at this point for years. He said, even if you were going to wear an earring, there's a time and a place for earrings. However, that specific type of earring gives the connotation of being kind of ghetto. She just told me straight up, like wearing name like a name earring as a man is a little ghetto. And I looked at her and I say, how? Like she explained it to me, you know. And luckily for her, shout out to Dr. Belinda White. She explained it to me. She broke it down to me, and even to this day, the fact that I'm telling you this story, it resonated with me. But it wasn't until I got to college that I felt like people showed up for me professionally. It actually showed me how to build a career, or showed me, or even had me even thinking about career. Um, yeah, I'm gonna pin it right there because I'll be rambling.
Right. But you know what is cool that you mentioned that though, because I the reason why I said that is to be so passionate about education, even though when, like you said yourself, you don't even really like school yourself, right? And I remember when I was in school, and this is one of the things that I teach the students when I talk to them, even about, you know, going to school for a purpose, with a purpose, right? Because one of the things that I know is one of the hardships with getting kids to take education serious is because they don't necessarily see how it equates to their real life. You know what I'm saying? Like in their real life, a lot of them are coming from, depending on where you are, they're coming from broken homes. They're coming from, you know, parents or grandparents, and even sisters and brothers that didn't finish school, you know, and might have done, you know, other things. Some may have started, you know, tried to start businesses or something like that. But it's like, okay, even in that, even if I got this family member that started a business, where the school fit in with that, you know? And I think that a lot of kids don't see the attachment of both, like how it plays, how education plays a part in your future. So that's one of the things that I'm passionate about when I talk to them, is like, okay, you're here for a reason. You know, if you can learn to think about what you want in your future and how you're going to get there, then you'll be able to see where school plays a part in that. But if you're only thinking about, you know, getting out of school and doing what you want to do and not really even focusing on your own future, then you'll never be able to put the pieces together that you need to put together, you know. And definitely getting started at an earlier age. You know, and one of the things that I preach is, you know, getting it started before you get out of high school. Like those 4 years of high school is not just to get through high school, but to start putting your plan together for after high school. Because if you wait until you get out of high school to start planning, you're already behind. You know what I mean?
Straight up,
And like you
straight up.
mentioned about nobody's coming, you know, and even again the kids to see that part, that okay, look at your life now. Look at the things that you're dealing with now. Look at the circumstances that you're dealing with now. If ain't nobody came now, what make you think they're gonna come later? You know
Straight
what
up,
I'm saying?
straight
And
up.
so so even in your, with your experience, you know, and you know, how did that turn into, you know, like I said, the passion that you have now for education, and how did that play out in your day-to-day now, even as being a teacher?
Cause man, I was sold that dream too. Go to school, get a good job. Like you're gonna be successful. You're gonna get to the what they say. You're gonna get to the bag. You're gonna get money. Like you gonna get that was like the furthest from the truth. And I feel like it's my responsibility because I did the traditional route. I did go to college, I did get the degree, I did get the master's degree. I did apply for the PhD. Look, maybe it wasn't in God's will for me to get it yet. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But in the moment that I did it, I didn't get accepted. In saying that, uh because I felt that way and because I actively did it, not even a feeling, I literally did it. I'm not quite as wealthy as I would like to be yet. I didn't know that I needed to engage financially, mentally, spiritually, and physically in order to actually reach my true success. I didn't know that even though I'm in college, even in college, people, it's crazy because no school actually tells you how to go out and get it for yourself. Not even college. College and school trains you to go work for people. It conditions
Mhm.
you in a way that you don't trust yourself. You don't trust your own first thought. You don't trust taking risks. And it's crazy because when you go to school and they sit down in class, that's the main thing that we want them to do. We want them to get it wrong. We want them to make mistakes. We want them to take risks. And that's the biggest thing that they scared of. So it's like a North and South Pole fighting all day, every day. So like again, I guess my passion is really like showing up where nobody showed up for me and actually just telling the truth. Like all things considered, you know what, young girl or young man or young lady, young man, y'all can actually be successful. However, if you decide that college is not for you, that means you have to do it right now. So what I mean by it, whatever you want to do in life to take care of yourself, to be a high functioning member of society, you would need to start that journey like at 12 years old. Like your Steve Jobs, like your Elon Musk, like your all like your Tiger Woods, like your Kobe Bryant, like you could go athletes, we could go like your Bill Gates. Like a lot of these people Ford. Let's go back all the way back to Ford. Like none of these people finished school. They were just really, really focused. They had something that they was really, really like invested in, compulsively invested. And that's
Mhm.
what you need. You need a hunger, you need a passion, and you need the skills to be able to navigate that passion. Which is why in school I actively teach, hey, at minimum, if you want to be successful, all you got to learn how to do is communicate, advocate, and execute. If you could do those three things, I promise you, you'll be able to go into any door. You'll be able to talk yourself into any opportunity, and you'll be able to actually keep that opportunity because you know how to navigate it. And honestly, that's one of my biggest reasons why I'm back in the classroom. That's why my audience is kids. Like I want them to understand that if you don't want to go to college, you don't have time. None of these people are your friends. Like, let's be very
Right.
clear. Like, unless they your business partners, let them go. Like, seriously, because you want something bigger, you want something greater. Like, you want it, and you want it right now. I will say, just to add this small piece, school is the only place that you go where you are in a system of delayed gratification with a cover of instant gratification. So I need to get a grade right now, but I don't get paid for another 4 years. I need to get this in right now, but I don't really get the benefit of none of my result for, and I only speaking really to high school. If we really want to be honest, middle school and elementary school again is one of them foundations, but nobody ever tells the high school kids that they eighth grade, seventh grade, sixth grade. It don't really follow them. It only follows them to ninth grade. And then we don't even look at the test scores from eighth grade for real, because they're not translatable. They only translatable or transferable to the extent of a diagnostic and what you coming in, maybe rostering or something like that. But I can't compare my I learned to my PSAT. It's like comparing apples to oranges. And I know a lot of people might not be familiar with certain tests, certain states take, or my regions to the regions actually a little bit more transferable to the PSAT, and that's like the New York testing. But you have all these different types of testing that don't translate to real life skills though. So even if I can do your work after I get done with this math problem, now what? And that's one of my motivations in being back into the school. Like I want to continually give you a now what. Where if you're done, then you shouldn't just chill out. You should go do the next thing. I ain't got no more work for you to do unless you want more math. But I really think you should start now, right now. What do you want? Why do you want that? What impact do you want to make? All right, what are some jobs or some careers that you could go experience and take risk with that will allow for you to experience that to know whether that's what you want to do for real?
Okay. Okay. I wait for you to take a break. So I want to go back to a couple of things that you said, right? First, one of the things that you said is something my dad used to say to us all the time, and it was never a real big thing to me, because I always been kind of a loner. But with my brother, who I've talked about a lot, my brother's only actually he's literally 1 year and 11 days younger than me. Right, my birthday is May 1st. His birthday is May 11th of the following year. In terms of how what years we were born, but as far as personality, we're like direct opposites, right? And so that was one of the things, because he was involved with so much, with his friends and things that they did, which led to him, getting in trouble a lot and hanging out with the wrong kids and whatever. But that was one of the things my dad always said: these are not your friends. Like all these people you're hanging around with, they're not your friends. And even to get back to what you were saying, even if you are friends, here now in high school, how many of those relationships are actually going to equate once you get into the real world? Once you guys are really out there trying to figure out life. Like if you're holding on too tight to these relationships, they actually might be more of a negative than a positive for you, because they might not be going in the direction you're trying to go. And now you're, kind of torn between your ideas and their ideas, but if we take this thought of, okay, this is only temporary, these relationships are temporary. Yeah, they can last longer, but not all of them is not. You know what I'm saying? And all of them aren't meant to be. Elevation requires separation. You know what I'm saying? So the higher you go, there's going to be some people you got to leave behind. And so I definitely want to touch on that. But I want to go back to the three things that you pointed out, and I want you to dive a little bit deeper into that, what you asked the kids to do. And I can't even say what you said, but your 3 points that you said you kind of teach the kids to be able to do, a master. What was those 3 points again? And let's kind of dive into that a little bit.
So it's communicate, advocate, and execute. So
Okay.
communication, right? We got to be able to express ourselves. We got to be able to articulate ourselves so I can understand you and you can understand me. Regardless of the feeling, even if I need to express that feeling, I need to be able to articulate my feelings and my thoughts in a way that I'm not insulting or, disrespectful. So got to create a common ground with my communication. Application. One of the biggest things that most people struggle with is asking for help. None of us, we don't know what we don't know, and none of us want to look stupid. But that's the main thing that makes us so unique, is that we can lean on one another. And what I don't know, you might know, but I got to be able to build the capacity enough to actually ask that question or affirm that understanding. I know a lot of people like, ain't no such thing as a stupid question. It is such thing as a stupid question. A question that has been answered already several times over, I do believe is a stupid question. However, I can affirm that understanding. Let's not ask the question then. Maybe I just need that understanding. So I wanted to help kids differentiate when I need to be affirming my understanding and when I need to actually ask the question. Because we don't know what we don't know. And sometimes we do need those assurances and affirmation. And that's where advocating really come in. And then execution. I don't know nobody that want anybody on their team that don't follow up and follow through. If I give you a task and you don't do it, I don't trust you now. Like, I'm not going to give you more tasks. Or if I give you a task and you do it and you knew you was doing it wrong, or you didn't know you was doing it wrong, I need you to have, going back to that communication, the humility enough to take that feedback. Yeah, I need you to have the humility enough to be like, all right, I see that you made this mistake. All right, no problem. Maybe you didn't advocate, but let's communicate in a way so this don't happen again. I think that's a revolving circle. Literally, no matter if you in college, no matter if you at home, no matter if you go to the top of the corporate ladder or at the bottom of the corporate ladder, like those three things are very crucial in order to be successful in life.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. And when I think about it, and thinking about the youth and even being active with those three ideas, I think about the youth and engagement and involvement they need to have in order to stay motivated to move through those things. Right. One of the things you said earlier is do it now. And again, I totally agree. It's like, okay, what are we waiting for? If you already have an idea of what you want your future to look like, then really start thinking about what do you need to be doing now in order to get those things started before you get out of high school. You know what I mean? Like there are some things,
Hmm.
there are some steps you can take and some movement that you can be building up right now as a student before you even get out of school, so that once you get out of school, you kind of move in, you already got some momentum and you just have to push forward with that momentum toward whatever that your goal is. And so even with you and in a classroom while you're working with these youth, how do you kind of keep them engaged with the ideas of, okay, what is your future, what it is that you want, and really giving them that mindset of, yeah, let's pick a goal and let's aim for it and press toward it. When so many of them are just thinking like in the moment, if I just like, hey, we just hanging out right now. Like, what are some of the things that you do or say to kind of jog them to say, okay, let me start taking this moment more serious?
Absolutely. Well, I'm not gonna lie. For me, I start my class with a commitment. Like literally every day, like a lot of teachers do nows and things of that sort. My do nows are actually like a class commitment. Every single day, we write the same commitment. It's like, when we gonna stop doing this? When we all are actually adhering to being a professional student. At the bottom of that, Brian Tracy. That's what the name I was trying to think about. I was trying to think about it the whole time. So Brian Tracy said, if you ever want to know, like, I guess, whether you want somebody on your team or not, give them the first task you should get them is to have them write down 5 goals. Just 5 goals every single day. Write down your 5 goals. So I actually had that a part of my do now. It started as 5, and I recognized, like, one, it was taking too long, and kids kind of struggle with actually defining what they want. So now it's a continuous conversation in my classroom because they got to write down 3 goals that ain't got nothing to do with school. Thereafter that, my kids also have like a tracker where I mapped out the minimum viable habits that kids should be practicing in order to be a professional or a student. So there's only so many things that you can do in a classroom to be a good student. And I think a lot of time we have mystified this idea of what does it look like for a kid to be productive or engaged in class. And it's like, no, it's not that much. I just got to be able to see it. It got to be something matched to my senses. They got to be something that they can actually do that small leverage. So regardless of whether I get the material or not, what are some habits that I could practice every single day that if I never got your math assignment, like what would be something that I could still practice? And I broke them down and communicate, advocate, and execute. So they got about 3 habits per. Execution is just getting the task done. That's our worksheet for today. That's our vehicle to execute today is our math worksheet. However, as we get to through this math worksheet, their responsibility throughout my entire class is to communicate and advocate. So I'm giving tickets, I'm giving incentives literally every time. It could be, yo, Mr. Thomas, can you slow down? Like I'm giving you positive praise. It could be Mr. Thomas. So what I heard you say was 2 times 2 was 4. Yes, 2 times 2 is good job. Like small, even it could be as small as that. I think affirming students' positive behavior is more beneficial, if not the most important thing in the classroom, because a lot of times we only focus on the negative. So mapping
Mhm.
out that process in my classroom has allowed for that to stay front of mind. Like we got an actual culture around being a professional student. Um, if you look back at some of my videos on my Instagram and TikTok, and if I ain't got none, I'll make sure I put something up there. One of the mantras that we say is, I'll be like, we're here to perform like, and the kids be like students, but behave like professionals. And I think having that at the forefront of their brain every single day, it just makes it easier for holding them accountable or giving them praise, because we only here to hold them to the standard of being a professional student.
I want to touch on that because I like that. I want you to explain a little bit more about that. Before we do that, though, one of the things that you mentioned is about us as a education, and it's definitely outside of the education as well, is always focusing on the negative and being able, addressing the negative. Because one of the things that I talk about, even when I'm talking to teachers and staff in the school, I have this one speech that I talk to them about. Have you seen the invisible student? Right. And a lot of times when you ask them who is the invisible student, it's the good student. It's the one that's doing everything right. It's the one that's not causing trouble. It's the one that's not causing ruckus. But that one child might still need some extra attention. But because you're so focused on those that are disruptive and in the negative, you kind of forget about that student. And that was me, right? I was that student. I was that student that was, on the honor roll and kind of did everything right. But there were times that I needed people to stand up for me, or people to reach out. And I did have three teachers that still to this day hold a special part in my heart because they saw me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even talking about in a way that was like, like I need to stay after school or nothing, but just seeing me as a student, just the kid in the back of the class that's quiet, that's not saying much, and taking out the time to come over and engage with that student. Hey, Ernest, how you doing today? Whatever. And that definitely made a difference for me as a student, but like you said, a lot of times because we're so focused on the ones making the most noise, the ones that's quiet, we kind of look past them when they need our attention too. They need to be affirmed too. Even with them doing the right thing, they need to be affirmed that, hey, Ernest, you did good today. I remember one of those teachers, and I don't even know if I even should say her name, so I'm not. But she was a math teacher, and I remember her. We had a assignment, and we ended up having to take a math test and everything. And I remember getting a postcard in the mail. Well, it wasn't addressed to me; it was addressed to my parents. But it was a postcard from the school, but it was from her. And she basically was telling my parents, Ernest is a great student, or whatever. And out of all her students, I think this was in high school. I don't remember what grade it was, but for all of those students for this particular test that we had to take, I got the highest score out of all the students of her students and of her math students. And I remember her sending that to my parents. I still have it. I'm 48 years old. I still have that postcard to this day. You know what I'm saying? Because it meant so much to me that she saw me. Again, I was the kid in the back of class, not saying too much, not getting in trouble, but a lot of times we get unseen. And so when you mention about, us being able to point out, not just the negative, but even affirm the positive, affirming the students, even when they say something or ask a question or whatever, just to be able to engage with them and lift them up. So I definitely, that resonated with me because of those three teachers in particular in my high school years that just took out a little extra time with me just to be like, hey, just to see me basically. So I'm glad that that's one of the things that you focus on also. But I want to go back to this idea of the professional student because it sounds engaging, right? But I'm sure there's more into it of what exactly is a professional student and what is kind of the concept behind it.
So you know how a lot of times Earl Nightingale says the most main thing that people do the most is conform. That's how they don't be successful, right? So I got this idea where I feel like you gotta assimilate before you differentiate. One of the things that I learned at Morehouse is that if you ever want to change the rules, you gotta do the rules first, so you know what to change.
Right.
You gotta
Right. Yeah,
actually
yeah,
do
yeah.
it first, so you have the nuances. Get your feet wet a little bit, and once you get your feet wet, you understand how this works. Then you
Mhm.
can actually start to make the different changes that you would like to make in the world. And that's kind of one of the reasons that either led me back in the classroom. So when I'm thinking being a professional student, I am thinking of actually teaching kids how to code switch, like literally, in its smallest nutshell. Like I need you to have the ability to be able to go into any space and assimilate. That's understand the rules of this space, adhere to the rules of this space, and then if you just don't like it, then you can start to differentiate, but you could do it in a professional way, i.e., going back to that communication, i.e., going back to that advocacy, i.e., going back to the execution, because you can't change anything that you haven't executed on. People don't trust you with. I have to have a sense of your trust for your work ethic. I have trust for your
Mhm.
integrity. A trust for how are you holding yourself accountable. So when I'm thinking about professional student, I think a professional student is the highest functioning, like being as far as like in the classroom or in a school that you could be. And I only say that to the extent of like, if it goes back and I scale it back a little bit, and you think about being a student, technically, like being a student, you're just learning. Just taking in information, trying it out. If it worked, that didn't work for me, so I'm gonna try it out a little bit differently. Okay, I still did what you asked me to do, but this way worked for me better. That you would actively have to be a student in order to even go through that or even have that process. As far as being a professional, one of the biggest things I would definitely say for young black boys and girls, and I would say more so, I hate to differentiate it from race. It's really an economic class thing. The lower class that your school is in, or whatever area your school is, the lower the class is in, the odds of you being exposed to the idea of how to actually show up as your best self, like you just won't get exposed to that. So you end up conforming to the environment and the neighborhood around you, when a lot of those people never left the neighborhood. That's why they still
Mhm.
behave in that manner. But once you leave and come back, you be like, oh my God, this is not normal. What do I got to do to help people understand that this, I feel you. I used to be like that, but that's not normal. And then I got to argue, well, what is normal? Like the world. Okay, all right, I get you. But to be a professional student in a nutshell is to have the ultimate. It's like code switching on steroids.
Okay, okay. So one of the things that I'm picking up now, which is a little different from my original thought when you said it, is that being a professional student is not just connected to the students in the classroom, right?
Hmm.
It's actually being a professional student of life, should we say? Like even as adults, we're still students because, like you said, a student is basically just a person taking in the information that's presented to them, and being able to articulate that information in a way that is productive to society, right? So now I'm looking at it a little different, like you said, the being a professional student, and it's not just a student as far as academically, but actual student as in the life, a student of life, should we say?
Hmm.
And one of the other things that you said that I think is very important, and I definitely agree with you, is exposure, right? And so you mentioned about growing up in Indiana. I grew up in Chicago, right across the state line from each other. But I remember when I moved to Indiana in my 20s, right? And long story short, me and another minister started a church in Gary, Indiana. And I remember talking to some of our members, and one of the things that you said about people never leaving the neighborhood, and I remember having those conversations about, have you been to downtown Chicago? Have you been to the city? And most of them was like, no. And I'm like, so you've never seen Willis Tower or Sears Tower. When we grew up, it was called Sears Tower. You never seen downtown Chicago. You never seen the lakefront. You never seen Buckingham Fountain. Like all of these things that's literally like 30 minutes away from where you are now. And there's a train that runs right there that for
Facts.
$6 would take you downtown
Facts.
Chicago. You know what I'm saying? But it's that not just the exposure, but even the expansion of your mind to even think, what if I get on this train? Where does it go? You know what I'm saying? Instead of just being like conformed to the neighborhood. So I think that really exposure definitely plays a large part in our, not just our students and our children, but even our adults, because some people never leave the neighborhood because their parents never left the neighborhood. You know what I mean? And so they like, well, my parents didn't leave, so it's good enough for them. It's good enough for me. And then nobody never goes outside of this, 50, 60-mile radius, when just 30 minutes, $6 in 30 minutes can take you to a whole new world. You know what I'm saying? But I think that
Absolutely.
that exposure is something that we have to do in order to even get our families, our communities, our churches, outside of their comfort zone, to let them know, again, like you said, there's a whole nother world, and is what you call normal in this little pocket of the world is so much different, than the rest of the world when you get
It is.
outside of this little environment.
I wonder how do we and this is I guess the question that I ask myself on a day-to-day basis and the things that I be wrestling with. I almost wonder how do we normalize growth. Um especially being in schools. Like school is more so result driven as opposed to just looking at growth, even though the metrics are of growth. And I want to be very clear, because as an administrator, I'll be talking crazy if I be like, yo, we're not looking for growth. We always looking for growth, but sometimes the growth that we're looking for is for lack of better terms, is not feasible. For example, in math,
Mhm.
for example, most of the learning that happens in math is between third and fifth grade. Thereafter, I'm just adding on to whatever you learn third through fifth grade. That's when the most math
Mhm.
growth really happens. If you get to me by the, I'm ninth and 10th grade. But if you get to me and you ain't mastered third through fifth grade, yo, ninth grade, you can forget about sixth, seventh, and eighth. I promise you, ninth grade just gonna be hard for you. I still got kids to today, like literally. And there's no shade to none of my kids, but it's like someone really can't add, someone really can't multiply. And I'm like, I'm never mad at that. I will never ever shame a kid for none of that. However, I will say you are 13, 14 years old. Now it's time to make a decision that it's not okay to not know this. So what are the
Mhm.
extra efforts that you would need to take and go home and do to get this extra information? Because I'm supposed to be teaching 1 and 2 step equations, but you can't identify operations. Ah, you
Yeah.
know me, I'm fighting a lot of battles here, and on top of that, you're gonna be emotional about it, and on top of that, I gotta make allowances for certain things. Not to mention if you have a certain plan or anything like that. Shout out to my my sped teacher, just love y'all. But if a kid actually has those accommodations and things of that sort, it's like now I got another battle to fight, because I gotta convince you to use the resources that you should be using. And the whole reason why you got them is because you had these gaps. And then if I differentiate between them kids and then my regular general education kids, it's like I'm really in a dog fight, because y'all ain't even got the resources that this person is using or not using, but you just won't take the effort when you know. I told you, I didn't gave you a syllabus. I didn't told you what you need to know for tomorrow. And hey, I even told you, hey, this the gap. If you just go home and write your timetables, I know maybe you should come up with some tricks, but you should really just memorize your timetables. I know people will probably hear that bite right there and be like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, nah, the world is actually hard, not knowing how to add and subtract integers and
Mhm.
actually not know how to multiply. I don't care what nobody says. If you don't know how to do a quadratic, you gotta know how to multiply and add integers. Like small stuff like that, man. It's an
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting dynamic.
Yeah, but I like what you said about us normalizing growth. Again, and that goes back to that exposure. And I think the more that we do that in whatever way that we can, you know what I'm saying, that it begins to open up those minds. So even that you mentioned, like the having the resources needed, for certain students or for all students in some cases, to be able to say, okay, what are you struggling with? You struggling with addition. So let me show you these other extra resources that you may be able to connect to, to let you know that it's not just what you have here. Like there's more that's out there, and even in those little spaces. So now, okay, let me actively go look outside of what I'm getting in the classroom and see what else is out there, especially with the phones, because that means you got all the information at your fingertips. But if you
Yeah.
don't go look for it, you're not gonna find it. If you're looking at TikTok videos, that's not going to help you unless you're looking at educational TikTok videos.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But it's beginning to open up that mindset to get them to look outside of their norm. You know what I mean? That begins to open up their eyes to that exposure, and I think that's awesome. Um, man, I really enjoyed this conversation, man, and I know we can go on for more and more, especially talking about the
Forever.
kids and and the education, and especially with the exposure. One of the things I did recently, I joined Champs Mentor Group, which is in the Chicago. One of the
Yeah, I'm
locations
familiar.
is in Chicago. Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things that they're big on is the exposure. And I just started in the last three meetings or three trips that I've been involved with was based on exposure, like going to areas that the kids ain't never been before and showing them things they ain't never been before. We even went to a men's conference, so you get to see some of the people that you look up to. It's a lot of famous people there, some best pro basketball players, and entrepreneurs and different people in this one space where we're able to take the boys there and be like, okay, these are men that's in all these different, eras of and professions. You know what I'm saying? So again, that exposure, and it was downtown Chicago. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, we take you all the way out of your comfort zone. And we showing you
Yeah.
all of this is out here. All of this is available to you. But if you're not exposed to it, maybe you don't even think that it's available to you because of where you're from. But I think that that exposure piece definitely plays a heavy has a heavy impact on our students or our kids in general. um Man, so before we get out of here, is there anything else you want to add, you want to throw in there?
Absolutely, man. I'll be remiss to not tell you, man. I genuinely appreciate you inviting me to your platform today, man. I think this is a great thing that you got going right here, man. I genuinely appreciate you. If nobody told you today, I'm really, really humbled not only by this opportunity, but to actually like be with you in this moment right here, right now. And I don't want that to go unsaid. So I appreciate you, man.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate. I can't even get it out now. I appreciate. I appreciate you being here and even taking out the time to be here. I want you to have the last word, right? So I want you to leave us with your social media handles, where we can find you and follow you, and even be in contact with you for those who may want to, inquire about other services that you have. And I want you to leave us with a word of advice or, something of the sort, inspiration, however you feel, right? So I'll give you a couple seconds to kind of think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you like this podcast and you guys have ever thought about starting your own podcast, I want you to get your copy of the ebook, Start Your Podcast Now, which is available at ebooksbyejames.com. I wrote this ebook because I was constantly being asked, how do I start a podcast? So I wrote this ebook to make it very simple. Start your podcast in only 3 steps. You can have your podcast up and running in less than a couple of hours, depending on how active you are at following the steps in the ebook. So again, you can get the ebook, Start Your Podcast Now, from ebooksbyejames.com. So make sure you guys go and check that out. Also, make sure you guys go check out my main website, which is the dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, which is my main website, which is my mission, which is also the mission of this podcast, which is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So make sure you guys go there and check me out. You'll be able to find out all the things that I have going on. Also be able to hire me to come out, or book me, should I say, to come out to be a speaker or a facilitator of a workshop at your location, be it organization or school. So make sure you guys just go there and check out that website. Also, again, ebooksbyejames.com, which is where you can get the Start Your Podcast Now ebook, but there's also other ebooks that are available, including the Core 4, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father. That ebook is there, as well as From Males to Men, a workbook, an ebook for young men transitioning into adulthood, that is also there, as well as two other ebooks. That's again available at ebooksbyejames.com. Make sure you guys go there and check that out. Make sure you also check out our podcast merch, which is available on our inspirational t-shirt line. So our inspirational t-shirt line is Deal to Heal Tees. That's Deal, the number 2, Heal Tees.com, deal2healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. So you guys can go there and get your inspirational t-shirts at Deal, the number 2, healtees.com, as well as check out our tees with our podcast logos on it. We have one with the podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions podcast logo, as well as one with the Deal to Heal with E. James logo on it. So make sure you guys go there. Last but not least, the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month. And we talk about everything regarding forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world. What does it mean to forgive? Who is forgiveness for? Just everything talking about and dealing with forgiveness. And it's absolutely free. The workshop is free, but the information is priceless. So you guys can go to theforgivenessmission.com and sign up for our next virtual workshop. You can take it on your phone or on your laptop. It's absolutely free. So whenever you're listening to this, either one just ended or there's one coming up. So you guys can go again, theforgivenessmission.com to sign up for our free virtual workshops, or just go to Eventbrite and look up forgiveness workshop held by the Forgiveness Mission, and you can log in that way and register that way. So again, thank you guys once again for tuning in, right? And so, Jamal, again, thank you, man, for being here, for sharing your expertise and your story. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
You guys can find me at Jamal Thomas Speaks on TikTok and Instagram. Again, it's at Jamal Thomas Speaks. And my word that I want to give to my administrators, man, let's redefine what it looks like for kids to actually engage in our spaces. For my parents, let's actually send our kids to school with a mission. And also let's actually define what their stake is in our households. And to my students, to my kiddos, y'all are valuable people. Y'all are the next thing popping. Y'all are everything that we need for our future, and I just need y'all to tap in so we can all have a successful future and we can work together. I'm just a bigger you, that's all. And I'm gonna end on that.
All right. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.